Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Just want to make a few opening comments before we get into questions and answers today. A couple things on the remote learning situation for our communities across the province. I think you heard the Premier and Dr. Roussen's announcements today, but just to confirm that schools in Winnipeg, Brandon, a few other school divisions will remain in remote learning for an additional week. We will continue to work with our public health officials to determine return dates for students. Clearly, we will be evaluating over the course of the week, and we will be making an announcement next week to determine the 3 weeks of the remaining school year. We certainly recognize this continues to be a challenging time for students, for parents, school staff, and again, thank everyone for their hard work, their diligence throughout the year, and certainly their patience as we try to get through the remainder of the school year. We know that our public health experts have told us schools should be the last to close and the first to open, and we will continue to work to get our students back in the classroom when safe. It is our preference to end the school year on a strong note, and we certainly know the value of students returning to the classroom. So today, again in our COVID fight, I'm announcing our government has allocated $58 million in new funding to schools for COVID precautions for the 21-22 school year. We want to ensure that school divisions have these allocations well in advance as they plan for whatever next school year may look like. This $58 million includes the following categories: $40 million in per pupil allocations, $6 million for potential PPE costs, $5 million for K-8 remote learning for medically compromised students through the Remote Learning Support Center, and $7 million set aside in contingency. We expect and are quite hopeful that there may be less public health measures required in schools come the fall. Some students will still require remote learning due to medical conditions. As an update, is it expected that schools and school divisions will spend up to $170 million of the $185 million for the current 20 and 21 school year. We continue to work with school boards and public health to ensure that schools can be safe places for both staff and students. As a final comment, I know graduation season is coming, and there will be a desire to celebrate student achievement. I know last year there was many creative social distancing ways that students were able to celebrate last year, and I would say that schools should prepare for that. We really don't know what public health orders will look like a month from now. But I fully expect there will not be having large gatherings. So I would expect that schools, school divisions plan for these celebrations accordingly. So with that, I would just say we'll look forward to another discussion over the course of the week, and we'll give you an update next week as soon as we have those discussions with public health and our school officials. So with that, we'll field any questions you may have.
Thank you, Minister. A reminder to our reporters on the line, you will have one preliminary and one follow-up question. Up first this afternoon from CTV Winnipeg, Jeff.
Oh, hi, Minister Cullen. You just talked about graduation and read over the graduation guidance. Was there any thought to just saying, everything has to be virtual or postponed to the fall, just by even possibly allowing some zero contact events, as the document describes it, that you do run a bit of a risk here, even though it's over a month away and things could change. Did the province, is there any consideration to just say canceling or postponing grad altogether, or doing everything virtually?
Yeah, I know that a number of school divisions and, in fact, schools are already starting to make plans for graduation exercises, and clearly we don't know what public health orders will look like. So I don't want to prescribe what the local school divisions or schools would like to do. I think we'll leave that up to them to make those decisions. So I really don't want to be, I don't think our government needs to be prescribing what that may look like. Again, we will say that we expect everyone to make sure they adhere to whatever the public health orders are at the time of those ceremonies, whatever they may look like.
And my follow-up question, you said that we're going to reevaluate next week about remote learning, but just seeing what our numbers are now, in a week, should parents prepare that, we could be doing remote learning, for maybe even another week beyond the week you announced today, or the rest of the school year? Should parents prepare for that? Because we still, we saw 8 deaths today. Yeah, case numbers look down, but our test positivity rate, especially in Winnipeg, is still very high. Should parents be prepared?
Yeah, I think parents should be prepared. Clearly, it's been a journey the last 15 months, lots of twists and turns in the road. And we appreciate everyone's patience in this effort. Our goal has always been to keep students in the classroom. Certainly they learn best there, and we certainly know from all the other mental health issues and relationship issues, it can be positive for them. But again, we have to make sure that we listen to public health and make sure that everyone stays safe. I would love to have the year close on a successful couple of weeks where we have students interacting with their friends. And that's pretty important. It's day by day for these students, and we just love to get them back and have a chance to see their friends before summer comes. But the reality is we have to prepare for whatever public health orders we have in place and whatever situation presents itself. So I ask, again, parents to be patient, but make those preparations for whichever way it's going to turn out.
From City News, Alex.
Good afternoon, Minister Cullen. Thank you for the time. I'm just kind of going off of Jeff's question here. So the school year lasts until, June 28th or something? I'm not exactly too sure on that date. But I remember when I was in middle school, nothing really had happened in the last 2 to 3 weeks of school. So just questioning here, I know your goal is to get students back into the classrooms because it's where they best learn. I get that. But this is also a pandemic, and in terms of COVID, Manitoba is the worst area in North America. So my question here, why even put students, teachers, and frankly parents at risk and risk higher case counts, and why not just keep the students at home until September?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I think we all understand the position we are here in Manitoba. We have seen our school-related counts go down over the last couple of weeks, so that certainly is reassuring. I guess everyone's cautiously optimistic that our numbers globally here within the province will go down. I think we have to be mindful as well about September, and we want to make sure that we're covering the bases as much as we can for the end of this school year and get our minds around what September is going to look like. So to have some closure for this school year, I think is very important. And again, I'll go back to my point about the individual students. They like to get together with their classmates. That interaction is positive. I know I have a letter from the head of the Manitoba Pediatric Association talking about all the benefits of students being together. And I appreciate that. And that's what we're trying to accomplish. But being mindful, public safety comes first.
Thank you for that answer. And I know you mentioned during the press conference here that you want to get ahead of things, but why announce funding for next year when there's still a lot of unknowns for this year? Why not announce this funding after school is done, maybe at the end of June or beginning of July?
Yeah, I think it's, we're still working through COVID, clearly, this year. We expect by the end of this current school year, by the end of June, we will have allocated about 170 million of the 185 that we did set aside. We've set aside money in this year's budget. We just wanted to signal to school boards that, continue the preparation for the new school year, beginning in September. We wanted to signal that we do have money set aside for them. So make sure that they're taking those necessary steps. Obviously, there will be a lot of learning recovery required. We're not sure exactly what that's going to look like, but school boards will be working on that. And so we just want to make sure and signal to them that we have supports in place to support that learning process. So I think it's really important that they know that we're here to support them.
From the Winnipeg Free Press, Maggie.
Hi, Minister. Lots of talk about what's happening for next year. So can you give parents a sense of, it's still September, still a ways off, but when they will be able to know if their kids will be able to be back in school full time? Does the province have a plan for when that announcement is going to be made?
Yeah, I know we're having a hard time predicting the next 2 weeks, so I hate to stick my neck out too far a few months from now. I think, we look at what's going on in other provinces as well, and we've seen some students back to school in some of those other jurisdictions. Again, I think we're optimistic with the vaccine process and the rollout in place. We'll get a high percentage of Manitoba's population vaccinated, and certainly by September, I think that will put us in a lot different light. And I hope that come September, we're back to a very close to normal school year. But again, I think we have to make sure we're planning for that. We do recognize that students are going to need some catch-up, some recovery learning, and we're here to support them in that, and we're here to support school divisions in that. And that's why we wanted to signal today that we're here to support them.
Minister, you spoke about the Remote Learning Support Centre next year. Can you tell us what you know about the support centre and the remote learning that will be provided to at least those students who have a medical reason to do remote learning next fall?
Yeah, we've allocated about $10 million to the Remote Learning Centre, and we've somewhere upwards of about 100 staff at the centre that are providing assistance to teachers and parents and students so far. I think we're going to certainly continue work on that front. We know there will be the recovery learning required. We think we can assist in that through that particular centre. So we will continue to make investments there, making sure it's staffed and making sure that the teachers get the resources that they need. Obviously, there could be students with special needs that require some special assistance. We want to make sure that that's available as well.
From Global News, Anya.
Good afternoon, Minister. Pretty simply, what are you expecting to change in a week's time when it comes to deciding if kids go back to class?
Yeah, clearly we're going to be having discussions with our public health officials. Again, I think we're optimistic that our numbers throughout the province will go down. We have seen some decrease in terms of the school-associated numbers. Obviously, the vaccine is rolling out. I mean, we're getting close to 60% for those 12 and over. Again, we still have about half of our schools in COVID normal learning. The other half, again, are in remote learning. So again, if we could get to a place that our public health officials feel safe, I think even for a couple of weeks, if we can get our students, especially the younger students, back into the classroom to have that experience with their classmates and their friends, I think is a positive. That's the sign we're getting from pediatric doctors as well. So we're supportive of that. That's always been our goal, and we'll see what public health feels a week from now.
Okay, thanks for that. So you just mentioned students might need to play a bit of catch-up next year. So with that being the case, why is repeating a grade table, and are you discussing with educators who are in the classroom with these students what the best option might be when it comes to children's learning?
Yeah, for sure. I think it stands to reason that not everyone learns as well from remote learning, for sure. Clearly, they learn better when they're face-to-face with their teacher. So clearly, there's going to be some work required to get people caught up to speed. We'll leave that to the experts in terms of what that recovery looks like. The educators are best to know that. We just wanted to signal today that we recognize that extra assistance is going to be required. That's why we're allocating this money today for next year's school, so that they can continue to make those plans and do what's right for their students.
From the Brandon Sun, Kyle.
Hello, Minister. You've discussed the kind of social value of allowing kids back to class in person for these remaining couple weeks of school, if that indeed happens. But is there any academic value in doing that, or is it primarily for the social development of students?
Yeah, I think educators could speak best to that, but I think there is some value here, both from the social side and certainly from the academic side. My earlier comments about trying to put this year behind us, if you will, I think it would bring some closure to this school year. Obviously there's the assessments that we'd like to see done, and every school division I know is wrestling with that. What does that assessment look like in a COVID situation? So if we could get them, especially the younger kids, back into the classroom, I think those assessments could be carried out. And I'm optimistic too that some students will be wanting to do some work over the summer and get themselves prepared for next year, whatever that looks like. So I'm optimistic that getting the students, especially the younger ones, into the classroom for a couple weeks would have a lot of benefits.
Thank you. And with regards to the kind of grad ceremonies you mentioned a while ago, would the province be installing kind of unique health restrictions to potentially, enforce these events, or would they just fall under the pre-existing ones that we already have, just enforce the health measures that are currently on the books?
Yeah, it's too early to determine what the health measures will look like for us in Manitoba. But clearly, any celebrations would have to be respectful and adhere to those public health criteria and those guidelines. That's really the signal that we're sending today. I will say that school boards, school divisions, local schools are already making those determinations, what their local grads would look like. We just ask them to be mindful that public health orders could change. But having said that, I don't expect there'll be room for large gatherings. So please make your arrangements accordingly. Hopefully we can have some positive news towards the end of the month, and we can have some at least larger gatherings than what we have right now. So I'm just asking them to plan accordingly, but be mindful of whatever the public health orders will be at the time.
From CJOB, Clay.
Good afternoon, Minister. We are hearing that there are some students out there who are depressed. They can't hang out with their friends after school. They're not involved in any extracurricular activities. When I'm looking at the release here, mental health and wellness, is there enough procedures in place, programs in place to help students who are suffering mentally through months and months of all of this? sometimes they're in school, then they're taken out of school, they're back to remote learning.
Yeah, good point, and it's a valid point, and I know those issues have been raised by the pediatricians as well. We're certainly mindful of the impact that this COVID has had, especially with the younger students. You know, we have made an announcement over the last few weeks where we've invested in money for mental health, both for teachers and students. Certainly, there's assistance available through health. We encourage parents and students to reach out if they're facing anxiety or other mood disorders or anything else associated with this, whether it be sleep deprivation, eating disorders, or any of those kinds of things. We still have our usual resources available. Please feel free to seek out and reach those. We recognize the challenges with mental health and those issues relative to COVID. We've established, I think, the first in the country, a department designed specially for mental health and wellness. So again, we have money allocated for these issues and hope that people will reach out and access those resources.
I'd have a quick follow-up. Is there any indication as to how the vaccination campaign for students 12 years and older is going? Is there a lot of participation? Do we have any early indications that everyone's on board with this?
Yeah, good point. And unfortunately, I don't have the numbers at my fingertips here. I'm hoping our vaccine rollout team would have access to those numbers. We're certainly doing everything we can to encourage those 12 and up to get their vaccination. Pediatricians are recommending it. We have sent information through the school boards, through the school system to that effect, making sure that parents and students have the information available to them in terms of the safety protocols, in terms of how to reach out and get the vaccines. So that information should be in Manitoba parents and students' hands. If they require anything else in terms of access to vaccines, please make sure you reach out. The message is clear. If we're going to get back to normal, please roll up your sleeve and get the vaccine.
From the Winnipeg Sun, Josh.
Good afternoon, Minister. This is Josh Aldridge, Winnipeg Sun. Just looking at this press release, there's been a lot of talk in the last several weeks about funding for next school year. Is this $58 million? Is this on top of any previously announced funding? What is the total funding for schools heading into next year? Does this include the $15 million carryover from last year? Is this all 100% new money, or is there combined money from other budgets and other announcements?
Yeah, and I guess the difficulty, Josh, is that the school year doesn't align with our budget year. So we will be spending the full allocation of the 185. We expect most of that will be consumed by June. Not sure if there'll be anything needed over the summer, but anything left over, be $15 million. We'll certainly roll that into this $58 million. That's the money that we're announcing today, and I will say we will be supporting the COVID fight into the new year, whatever that looks like.
Okay. I guess is this money, is it going to be accessed the same way the state school fund was accessed this year on request following investments by schools, or is it just going to go straight to $40 million, for example? Is that just going to go right out to the schools? How is this money going to be accessed by the schools?
Yeah, we'll use the same process we've used in the current school year. So when school divisions will submit their COVID expenses to us, it will be paid out. What we did this year was allocate a contingency fund over and above a per pupil allowance so that they could reach out for any expenses over and above that original allocation. So we'll use the same principle, the same process this year as we did this past year.
Our final reporter this afternoon from CBC Manitoba, Nick.
Hi, Minister Cullen. Thanks for speaking with us today. This is Nick Brew from CBC. The $58 million announced today, I'm wondering, is that a hard cap, or could more funding be allocated next school year if needed?
Yeah, we're certainly committed to funding whatever the COVID response requires. I think, in my mind, this is the minimal amount that we will be providing to school boards. I guess we're optimistic September will come and we'll be closer to a normal school year than certainly what we are now. But we do recognize there is going to be some recovery required and some catch-up required. So clearly we're allocating resources for that. Optimistic that the actual day-to-day operations will look more normal than our current COVID situation. But we are committed to fund whatever that looks like.
Thank you. And my follow-up on that note, stricter public health orders were announced again today. The last time we went into a similar lockdown, it lasted a long time. Have you gotten any indication from public health officials about what will need to happen for in-class to occur in September?
Yeah, clearly we'll be working very closely with our public health officials. They're the experts in terms of when it would be safe for us to proceed. We'd love to get our students back into class, but again, it has to be safe to proceed. So clearly they'll be looking at global numbers around the province. They'll be looking at numbers in the centers where we're at remote learning, such as Winnipeg and Brandon and some of those other divisions. Clearly, we've seen a downtrend in terms of cases associated with schools, so that is positive. Clearly, they also have to look at our situation with healthcare. That's what's driving this situation. So those will be part of the factors that I believe they will be looking at. Again, we will seek advice from them over the course of the next week. And again, optimistic that we can get, especially our younger kids, back in school for maybe the last couple of weeks, the remainder of the school year.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, everyone. This concludes our media briefing.
Thanks, everyone.